All right. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon for the presentation, Every Second Counts, workshop for perfecting your ID&R elevator pitch. Like I mentioned, my name is Justin Settles. I'm the project specialist for the Identification and Recruitment Consortium, and I'm really, really happy for you all to be here today and to be joining us. Recruiters may only have 15 to 20 seconds to introduce themselves in the migrant education program to those they meet on the job. It is important that recruiters have their elevator pitch ready to go for any situation. This workshop will provide helpful tips for recruiters and help participants work through creating their own elevator pitch for a variety of audiences. Hold on just 1 second. We're having a technical difficulties issue. All right. So to begin with, what is an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is a short description that introduces who you are, what you do, and the purpose of your visit in such a way that any listener can understand in a short period of time and should provoke the listener to want to continue the conversation. It is called an elevator pitch because it should be short enough to say during the ride on an elevator. Creating an elevator pitch is a crucial skill all recruiters should know. Recruiters meet new people all the time on the job and must quickly introduce themselves and explain why they are visiting. Workers in the field, farm owners, and even families may not have more than 30 seconds to listen to what a recruiter has to say. And so because of that, recruiters have to be able to be quick, they have to be prepared, and they have to know what they are going to say in that short amount of time in order to pique the interest of the person they're talking to, in order to get them into further conversation. Our first impressions are oftentimes the most important. Studies have found that the first 20 seconds of any conversation are the most important because that is when people decide their initial impressions of you and if they're going to trust you. It can be difficult to overcome a bad first impression, so your elevator pitch needs to be effective. Oftentimes, our bad first impressions can last for a really, really long time. And so we want to make sure that we leave a good impression by having a strong elevator pitch that we can rely on and turn to in order to bring people into conversation. So when and where should you use your elevator pitch? As a recruiter, you should use your elevator pitch with every new person you meet, unless you know that they have time for a longer conversation or you have scheduled a meeting with them ahead of time. You always should assume that the person you are speaking to is in a hurry and use your best judgment for how you should approach the conversation. A lot of times when we're out visiting locations, going to farms, visiting families' homes, people can be really, really busy. We're going to a house, the family might be eating, the family might be getting ready to leave to go somewhere. Maybe the farmer is doing important work on the job. People are really busy, so you have to be able to pay attention, use your best judgment, and know when it's appropriate to use your elevator pitch. So what should an elevator pitch contain? All elevator pitches should be as brief as possible and should only contain basic and necessary information. You should only mention the bare minimum information to explain yourself during the elevator pitch. Remember that the elevator pitch is a conversation starter. Oftentimes, I see way too many recruiters that take the elevator pitch and try to treat it as the conversation in and of itself. They try to include everything that they possibly can and cram it into 15 to 30 seconds. But the problem is that if we give too much information to a family or to the person that we're talking to, it can overwhelm them. It doesn't give them time to process everything, and it can turn them off to the conversation. I've seen firsthand where I saw a recruiter one time who went up to an OSY who was there with a group of OSY, and they were trying to recruit them. And they spent 2 minutes explaining who they were, what the migrant education program is. And by the time that their conversation was done with, the OSY's eyes had just kind of gone, you could tell that they were just spacing out, that they were no longer paying any attention because they had been given too much information and couldn't process it. Remember that you can always elaborate and provide further information later on during the conversation once your listener has had their interest piqued and joined into the conversation. You should always have different elevator pitches prepared depending on who your audience is and who you are speaking to. As a recruiter, you're going to be out in the field talking to many different people during the day, people that come from wide walks of life. You're going to be talking to potential school staff. You're going to be talking to farm owners. You're going to be talking to labor contractors, farm workers. You're going to be talking to mothers of children. You're going to be talking to OSY. You're going to be talking to community partners. There's a wide audience of different people that you're going to talk to. And your elevator pitch should change according to who your audience is. You should try to cater your elevator pitch to the interest and needs of your audience. And so ahead of time, as you're planning, at your house, before going out into the field, thinking about all the people that you're going to be talking to, thinking about your audience, think about what is it that you and the migrant education program can offer them? What are their needs? How can the migrant education program meet those needs? What would interest them the most? And what do they need to hear? When you're preparing your elevator pitches for different audiences, keep in mind as well that for some audiences, there is information or words that you should avoid with your elevator pitch because it can complicate the conversation. So to give you an example, when discussing who you are and what you would call the migrant education program, thank you, Gloria, in chat, for discussing who you are and where you work for, think about how you would describe the migrant education program to people. One of the things I've heard from recruiters all over the country, and I've even experienced myself, is that sometimes, the word migrant can have a lot of different connotations. And so sometimes people might confuse it with the word immigrant. So we have to be really careful when introducing ourselves and the program, how we describe the program, what we name it. And so think about your audience. Maybe if you're going to talk to a farmer, you might think about calling the program Title I Part C, which is the formal federal declaration for the program, or another name, depending on who it is that you're speaking to. One of the things that I always try to tell new recruiters as I'm training them is that, make sure that you choose your words carefully. Try not to use any words that can be confusing or that people might not know the definition of. This is especially true, I think, for us, during the elevator pitch. Think about words, even such a word like agriculture. And what does agriculture mean? If we go out and we provide an elevator pitch and say that, hi, my name is Justin Settles. I work for the Title I Part C program with the local schools to help families that work in agriculture. What one person defines as agriculture might be completely different than what somebody else defines as agriculture. So we have to be very careful about the words that we choose, or we have to make sure that we are defining the words ourselves. So what information should always be in your elevator pitch? Your elevator pitch should try to contain as much of the following information as possible. Number one, your elevator pitch should include your name so that people know who you are. Your elevator pitch should include the organization or program you work for, which in this case is Migrant Education Program, Title I Part C. Specifically, if you are working directly with one of the local schools, always include the local school that you're working with in your elevator pitch so that people know who you work for. Oftentimes, working for a local school can open many doors, and so make sure you include that information. Talk about what kind of services or benefits are offered in your area. Again, go back to thinking about the needs of the person that you were speaking to and specifically how the migrant education program can meet their needs. And so when you're doing an elevator pitch and talking about the services that are offered, you want to make sure that it's relevant to the person that you're speaking with. Include some kind of broad statement on who you are looking for. I always try to encourage recruiters when talking about who we are looking for out in the field or who might be eligible to always start as broad as possible. That way we're getting more information in. Sometimes if we get way too specific with what we are looking for, it turns people away and people think they can't give us information because they think it doesn't apply. And so try to make your statement about who we are looking for to be quite broad. So for example, you might say, hi, my name is Justin Settles. I work for the Title I Part C program with the local school. We're out in the area looking for people who are new, who might have arrived in the last year. And so you can see that's a very broad statement, but is also clear enough to know for the person that you're speaking to be able to provide you with some information or some feedback. Also try to include a clear description of what you want from the visit, as well as an invitation to continue that conversation. Like I mentioned before, the elevator pitch is a conversation starter. So we want the elevator pitch to encourage people to continue talking to us. What should you avoid when creating your elevator pitch? To begin with, always avoid words that are confusing or problematic for your audience, just like we were talking about. You want to make sure that you're not using those words that people might define incorrectly or that can cause problems or provoke negative feelings. You want to make sure that you avoid explanations that are too long or complex or long-winded. You don't want to go to provide an elevator pitch and say that, you're looking for families that have made moves due to economic necessity from one residency to another, from one school district to another. It's our job to know a lot of the complex nuances of eligibility, and we just want to make sure that we are getting information. Remember that as recruiters, one of the things I always tell new recruiters is that, we measure success of recruiters by how much information that we are getting from the community. And so our elevator pitch should lead us to getting as much information as we possibly can. And then it's our job to know how to sort through that information. So don't provide explanations that are too complex or long-winded that are going to turn people away. Don't provide too much information too soon and too fast as well. I talked earlier about the recruiter who spent too long describing the migrant education program. One of the other issues that I've often seen from recruiters is that recruiters can speak way, way too fast and not giving people the chance to actually listen and understand what you're saying. And similarly, don't ramble or repeat yourself. Make sure you're clear and concise in everything that you're saying. Your elevator pitch should be compelling and interesting enough to spark the conversation. You want to make sure that you're using your elevator pitch to initiate that dialogue, to find that common ground between you and the person that you're speaking with, and really invite them to continue speaking to you. One other thing that I really would like to encourage for all recruiters is that your elevator pitch should highlight you and your personality. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about, some of the elevator pitches, not just the words we use, but the body language as well. So you want to make sure that you are highlighting who you are. It's not a robotic speech that you give to everybody. Put yourself into it, smile, be happy through it because you're glad to be there. Really showcase who you are and your passion for the program. Let yourself shine through in your elevator pitch. Don't be afraid to put on your own flair in any way you possibly can. Be expressive whenever possible and include a detail about yourself or your passion for your work. One of the things that I always included, is like, hi, my name is Justin. I work for the Title I Part C with the local school district. I began doing this work because I really wanted to help out my community. You can talk about why you began doing the work, just a quick little detail about yourself to throw in there to let people know who you are. It's going to let, when you provide that detail about yourself, it's going to put your audience at ease. It's going to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, and it's going to allow them or encourage them to continue talking to you. As I mentioned, our elevator pitches are more than just words. When you're giving your elevator pitch to your audience, they're not only going to be listening to what you have to say, they're going to be paying special attention to how you were saying it. Body language, facial expressions, your tone of voice, the speed you talk with, even how you use your hands and much more can all play a factor into how people are going to receive your elevator pitch and can make your elevator pitch more memorable. If you go and you stand there with your hands just by your side, monotone the whole time talking, that's not inviting anybody into a further conversation. You're being, robotic, and it can, make people uncomfortable at times. So allow yourself to be relaxed, put yourself into the elevator pitch, be natural, especially with how you talk. If you are a person that uses your hands a lot to speak, I know a lot of recruiters that are very expressive and are always using their hands. Do so in your elevator pitch. Allow yourself that freedom to be you. Always try to smile as much as possible when giving your elevator pitch and be as enthusiastic as possible. Smiling and enthusiasm is oftentimes very, very contagious. If you smile and are enthusiastic, the people that are listening to you are going to want to hear more about what you have to say. People can oftentimes tell how excited you are when you are giving your elevator pitch, even just by your tone of voice. If you are excited and believe in what you're saying, it is much more likely that your audience will also be excited and will believe in what you're saying right along with you. And so the more excited you are, the happier you are, the more positive you are while providing your elevator pitch, the more likely it is that the person speaking to you is going to follow along, participate in the conversation, and continue talking to you. Another key important factor about when giving your elevator pitch is that you always want to be assertive, upright in your posture. Don't, hunker down or bend over. Face your audience, the person that you're speaking to, and keep eye contact. Eye contact is very, very important. It lets them know that, you're being confident, that the conversation that you're having matters. Don't shift your feet or move side to side. Don't cross your legs. One thing I've seen a lot of recruiters do is they'll be talking and they'll start to give their elevator pitch and they're kind of going to lean to the side on something, or they'll lean on a chair, lean against a wall, to try to make themselves more relaxed. No, stand up straight, be firm, and, face your audience, as well as maintain eye contact. Watch your hands while you're giving your elevator pitch. As we mentioned, hands are crucial for maintaining proper body language. Keeping your hands open with your palms facing up often provokes a positive reaction in audiences. Watch out for having your fists, watch out for crossing your arms. That's something I've seen a lot of recruiters do. If you don't know what to do to your arms, they'll just kind of sit and they'll cross their arms like this while having a conversation. But if you cross your arms, that can oftentimes portray feelings of discomfort, that you don't want to be there, that you don't want to be talking to them, which is not what you want. You want to continue to provide positivity. So, keep your hands open, be expressive, maintain that eye contact, and watch what you're doing with your hands. One of the things that I always encourage people to do is to have something that you can hand out along with your elevator pitch. And so that could be a business card. And so many of us have business cards that we have created or that have been made for us for the Migrant Education Program. Have a business card that you can hand out. Maybe there's a flyer that you have that you can share, a brochure talking about the program, a postcard advertising the program, something that you have that you can give to the person that you were speaking to when you were done. Always have materials that you can leave with your audience to make sure they remember who you are and in case they have any other questions. Any materials that you leave, you want to make sure it has some kind of contact information from you. And so whether or not that materials have it already printed onto the materials themselves, or you write it down, your name and phone number as well, make sure you have something that you're leaving that has contact information so they can get back to you. Be sure to save any of the materials that you have for when your elevator pitch is finished. One of the mistakes that I've seen recruiters make way too often is that they'll go to initiate the conversation with somebody. They'll give them their business card right off the bat. They'll give them the flyer right off the bat. Or they'll give them a postcard, a brochure. right off the bat. And as soon as you put something into somebody else's hands, their focus is now going to be on what you have given them. And so if you go to a farm owner, for example, you want to introduce yourself, you want to introduce the migrant education program. So you go up to introduce yourself, you hand them the brochure talking about what the migrant education program is. That farm owner is going to immediately start reading the brochure. They're not going to hold off on it. They're not going to stop to listen to what you have to say. They're going to start reading the brochure. And so the problem with that is when they start reading the brochure, they're now no longer paying 100% attention to you. They might still be listening, but they're going to be focusing most of their attention on that brochure. And so because of that, your elevator pitch isn't going to be as successful. And so you want to save the materials that you have to hand out until after you have given the elevator pitch, until after you have brought them into the conversation. That way they are paying 100% full attention to you and what you have to say, because that's what's important. So now let's talk about how to actually go about crafting your elevator pitch for your specific audience. The best way to entice someone with your elevator pitch is to identify their biggest needs and how the migrant education program can specifically meet those needs. You are helping the person that you are talking to see exactly how the migrant education program can be beneficial for them. And so when you are thinking ahead of time about what you need to do, try to think about what your audience is going to need and how the migrant education program can meet that. Choose carefully how you describe the migrant education program for your audience and the language that you use. I know we've mentioned this several times, but it's so, so important. Avoid any words that can be left open to interpretation, and make sure you make it clear that the migrant education program is for anyone who meets those eligibility requirements. We really want to make sure that we say that the migrant education program is for anyone. Just because a lot of times when people hear the term migrant education program or hear about Title I Part C, they think the program can only be for a very specific audience. So we have to make sure that we let people know that we are looking for anybody that could possibly meet those requirements. One thing that I do always try to tell recruiters as well is that, we should always trust our best instincts as recruiters. You as a recruiter are going to know your audience. You're going to know your community, and you should use your best judgment when crafting your elevator pitch to make sure you would choose the appropriate language that would best be understood by all parties in your community. So now let's talk a little bit more specifically about narrowing it down to different categories or different audiences. So to begin with, we're going to be talking about how to make an elevator pitch for farmers. When crafting your elevator pitch for farmers, think of the ways that the services you offer to students can help the farmer. For example, MEP can help non-English speaking students learn English so they can better communicate with the farm owners. This can be a big plus for many farm owners around the country that have non-English speaking workers. The migrant education program can also offer referrals for students and their families to help them with any needs that they may have. And so you can tell the farm worker that, hey, if anytime that your worker gets sick, we can always help make sure that they're getting the medical care they need by providing them with a referral to the right doctor in the area. The migrant education program can also help the lives of farm working families by showing them the resources in their area and by helping to provide referrals. Be aware that some farmers, may already believe that they already provide a lot of the needs for their workers. So you need to go in prepared to be flexible with your pitch and demonstrate alternate benefits if the first try doesn't work. I've gone to farms before where I've been like, oh, hey, we at the migrant education program, we have this relationship with these local doctors so that if any of your workers ever get sick, especially during COVID, we can provide them with a referral to make sure they get the medical help they need. And the farmer responded with, well, I already take all my workers to the doctor, and so I don't need that. And so make sure that we're flexible, think about multiple needs that you might be able to meet and get creative as well with it. We want to make sure that anything we do offer is always going to be relevant to what the farmer needs and has to say. Other ideas for options, maybe there's some local resources that you could provide for the farmer. as well, or maybe information about upcoming community events. Like I said, get creative in how you can help meet a farmer's needs. Maybe they need help with some translating or some training that happens on site. If you are unaware of what your needs are or your audience's needs are, you can always make it part of your elevator pitch to ask what their needs are so you can discuss how you can meet their needs. You know, I've done that before where I've gone around and said, hi, my name is Justin Settles. I work for the Migrant Education Program with the local school. I'm going around right now just trying to find out what the needs of the farmers are, you know, and just start like that and allow them to tell you exactly what their needs are so that the next time you get out there, you'll have more information so that you can go and meet the needs as they come up. And so now I want to do one of our first activities. And so throughout this, we're going to be thinking and brainstorming and trying to create, you know, elevator pitches for different audiences. And to begin with, we're going to start talking about farm owners. So take a minute and think about what the needs of the farm owners are in your area. Write down 1 or 2 brief sentences about how the Migrant Education Program can meet those needs. And when you are finished, share some of those needs in chat so that others can see. You know, maybe you can come up with one of the needs in your area that somebody else might not be able to think of. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or 2 to write down your notes about the needs of farm and agribusiness owners in your area, and then share it in chat and we'll talk about it. All right. I see one person put workers. More specifically, what about workers would the need be? All right. Does anybody else have any other needs? We see people say health and social services for workers. I think that can be a really, really big need and a need that we saw during the pandemic. Mildred says, you know, people don't work in farms anymore and are looking for other areas. Monica said, you know, they need workers to be able to communicate with them. Gloria similarly mentioned, you know, workers needing English lessons and helping with English lessons. So did Yolanda. Okay. Bianca mentioned, you know, that there might be farms that need workers because people weren't wanting to work, you know, in the fields during COVID. And so they might be able to help refer people to the farm or nursery. It seems like we have several people mentioning farms as being, you know, short with workers or not having enough workers. And so now take a moment to think about these needs that we've talked about. I see Marcella also mentioned childcare for workers, which is another really important thing that oftentimes is important and needed. Many families, you know, have to work and don't know what to do with the children during that time. And so now take a moment to think about the ways that the Migrant Education Program can meet those needs of the farmers and the agribusinesses in your area, and share in chat any ideas that you may have. So now that we've mentioned, you know, healthcare services, how can the Migrant Education Program, you know, meet the needs of those farmers that might need healthcare services for their workers? You know, how if a farmer is short workers or they don't have enough workers, how can the Migrant Education Program, you know, help meet that need so that we can go and find new families that might qualify? Take a minute and share your answers in chat. I think Bianca had mentioned, something good, saying that if they noticed that a farm was maybe short on workers and they knew people from everywhere else was, they knew people that were looking for jobs, you could say, hey, I know people that are looking for work. I could refer them to you. Like Bianca said, letting them know you have access to contacts of workers with previous experience that might be looking for a job. Monica mentioned some families come searching for farm work, so we can connect families with those farmers. And so if you are in an area where you have a lot of workers that are coming that don't already have jobs lined up or don't know where to go to look for jobs, that can be really, really helpful in referring people to the farms to work, especially if you have good relationships with the farms. That could be a great way to meet that need, which will hopefully open doors and allow you, to meet new families. Yolanda says, providing information to others in the community and to help promote the jobs available with our families in our program. Very good. What about for something like childcare? For workers that need help with childcare, how can you address that need? We saw a lot about English lessons or workers needing English. Maybe you can provide English language materials. Is there any other ways that you can think of how the migrant education program? I think for a lot of us, we can search for daycares in their area and share it with them. That's a very good idea. I think one of the keys for being a great recruiter is being able to know the resources in your area and how to share and use those resources. And so, if you know of a good childcare service in your area that is affordable, that farm workers could use, or maybe, let them know about it. Let them know about other resources that might be out there. Aurelie says, provide information about local daycares and preschools that focus on migrant children. There you go. Monica mentioned that in their community, there are free English classes that you can share info with to our families that want to learn English. I think that's great. And so, you can go and visit a farm and say, hey, I know about these free English lessons that are happening, in the community already, just to let you know so that your workers can take advantage of it. Yolanda mentioned promoting Head Start and affordable childcare in the area. All these are great, terrific ideas. So now, based on the needs that you wrote, take the time, we're a smaller group, so we're not going to do any breakout groups, but take the time, to create an elevator pitch aimed at a farmer in your area. And so I'm going to give you all a minute to kind of write something down, to introduce yourself, to introduce, the migrant education program to a farmer. Imagine that you are going to a farmer in your area to talk to them. What would you say? Introduce yourself. Remember to include your name, who you work for, the school you work for as well, and then to bring up maybe those needs and how those needs can be met. And so I'll give everybody a minute. And once that minute is up, I would love for some of us to share. All right, I would love to hear back from anybody. You can either share by typing it into chat, or you feel free to unmute yourself and to say it out loud, and we would love to hear it. Mildred says, hi, my name is Mildred Valenzuela. I'm a recruiter and work in the BG City School District. Gloria says, hi, my name is Gloria. And the reason I'm visiting today is to inform you that we have a migrant education program that helps agricultural workers. And I would love to see if you have some of your workers qualify for a program. Very good. All right, anybody else want to share? All right, I think one of the key things that when we're talking about doing an elevator pitch and presenting ourselves to farmers especially, Bianca says, let them know who you are and how you can help them and their workers. Maybe mention something about their farm or nursery to help them engage. And I think that's a great point. I think one of the key things, specifically when talking to farmers, is that we want to make sure that they know that you care about them and the farm, that we're not just there, only for business, that, we care about the work that they're doing. And so, when I go out to introduce myself, I always let them know, hi, my name is Justin. I work for Title I Part C for the local school district. I'm here today, we're out visiting the local farms, seeing how everything's going and checking to see, how the workers are doing as well. And so, you start that conversation with them and you can ask and say, so how are things going for you today? So then that they have a next step that they can take to kind of continue that conversation and start talking about themselves as well, so that they are brought into the conversation to hopefully continue the conversation. And so that it's clear, that you're there not just for the workers, not just to do what you need to do, but also because you want to, know the farm, know the farmer as well, and that everything is going all right for them. All right, let's move on to talk about working with families. So creating an elevator pitch, for farm workers and their families. When you are giving your elevator pitch to farm workers and their families, you always want to emphasize how the migrant education program benefits not just the children, but the entire family as well. You can also point out how they can help their own communities by helping you connect with more students who may qualify. One of the things that I've seen work quite effectively is, letting, if in your area you provide in-home services, letting the family know that when you're there to provide services and classes for your students, that other family members may come and watch and learn as well. This is especially important with English classes. A lot of times, if you're providing English classes, the whole family will want to come and participate. And so let them know that they can come, they can learn and watch too. You want to always emphasize in your elevator pitch that you can be flexible and you can meet them and the family when they are available. You can work to accommodate their busy schedule and to make sure that they are not missing out on any time of work to talk to you. And so I think that's especially important if you're speaking with the worker or a family member that's at the farm at the time that they're out there on the job. We want to make sure that we're always being respectful of their time. We're not taking away any time that they could be using to make money. And so work to accommodate your busy schedules into theirs. Let them know that you're wanting to talk to them, but you can talk to them at a later date or a later time if need be. Another selling point for your elevator pitch to farm workers and their families is that the migrant education program is a national program, and by enrolling in the program, their family can potentially receive benefits and services wherever they may go. Point out that enrolling in the migrant education program can help them gain access to resources quicker whenever they move. And so I've used that before with a lot of families by letting them know, hey, I see that you move around a lot. If you enroll in the migrant education program, when you move to a new state, we can let them know so that they can meet you there and continue the educational services. And so these are all kind of great ideas to get you thinking about, how you can meet their needs, what their needs are, and to get them thinking too about the long term. And so we're going to continue our activity. And so now we've talked about farm owners. And so now think about families or farm workers in your area. Think about what needs they might have. Again, take a minute or two, write down 1 or 2 brief notes in your notebook, and then share in chat, what those needs might be that those farm workers and families have in your area. So Mildred said transportation, maybe that's transportation to and from work, driver's licenses. That's a big one that I've seen, especially for younger workers, maybe OSY needing to get driver's license in order to be able to drive to and from work or to drive at work as well. I think those are definitely big needs. Need for interpreters, that's a huge one. And so interpreting at the school, sometimes even interpreting at home. Health services is also huge. A lot of our families need both, doctors, they need dental health. I've seen a lot of migrant students that have issues, with their teeth, but families might not know where to go to get dental health. And so I think that's a big one. One of the things that we've seen increase recently as a big, big need is mental health amongst migrant workers and students as well. And so, what are the mental health services that are available out there that maybe we can provide as recommendations to students? Connecting families to local agencies that are willing to work with our families, help with applications for service processes. I think that's another good one. And so, it kind of goes along with that interpreters need. A lot of times there's resources that are available that families might need to sign up for, but they might not know how, or even they might not know how to enroll in school, especially if, this is their first time in your area. Maybe they don't know how to get their kids in school. Bianca says, some families, like mentioned before, need childcare and food services. I think food services is one, haven't seen brought up yet, but that's a real good one, especially, during the winter times when things might be a little bit more difficult. And so, what kind of food banks are out there? Maybe they need computers, technology, internet access. All of those things are, potential needs that students might need to be able to get the work done that they need for school and to be able to do homework. All right, and so now that we've talked a little bit about what some of these needs are, Sonia says, basic services, even just help with bills like electricity, natural gas, maybe sometimes the cell phone bill can be difficult as well. So now that we've talked about some of these needs for the workers and their families, take a moment to think about how the migrant education or even rent, yeah, for sure. I've seen in the last few years rent really go kind of high for a lot of families. And so maybe, how can we meet those needs? And so take the time to think about how the migrant education program can meet many of the needs that we mentioned in chat. When you think about it, write it down, and then, take a minute or two to kind of write down your own elevator pitch for how you would approach a family, how you would introduce yourself to a family or a farm worker, taking into consideration some of the needs that we've talked about here and how you can help meet those needs. And so I'll give you all a minute or 2 or 3. Some people needed a little bit longer last time, and then we'll share. I think Gloria provides some good advice in chat. She said, create your own portfolio from all the different agencies or services that are offered in your area that can provide help to the community. That way you can have them whenever you go to meet with migrant workers and their families so that you can know what kind of referrals to provide. All right, I'll give you all another minute or two to work on your elevator pitch for families and farm workers. Right, Mildred said, I refer families to food banks. We have a food pantry that also provides food for needed families. They interpret it for families, when they go to doctor's appointments, or they have hotspots for students that might not have internet access, and provide information where they can get internet access. That's all great. So does anybody have their elevator pitch for a family or farm worker that they would like to share? Even if you don't want to share right now, take the time, to write something down that you could use in your community. Again, you all are going to know your community the best. You all are going to know the needs of your community the best. You're going to know what's out there. You're going to know what people are responding to and what people aren't going to respond to. And so always trust your instincts in knowing, what your community should need. All right, let's go on and talk about the needs, creating an elevator pitch for schools or community partners. Oftentimes, when we're out recruiting, we're not just working with farms, agribusinesses, and going home to home speaking to families. Oh, Gloria mentioned, hi, I'm visiting the farmers and their workers to inform you that the school district works together with local agencies to provide you with some help that you may need, and we're here to serve and help you. Please let us know if you have a special request so that we can communicate them to the right agency so you can get help. I really like that a lot. I like how you made the focus on the person that you were speaking with. I think that's very, very valuable. I think all too often when we're doing our elevator pitches, the focus tends to be on us and what we want. And so Gloria, I think that's a fantastic example of, how to turn that around and make the elevator pitch about the person that you're speaking to. If you make it about the person that you're speaking to, they're much more likely to pay attention and to listen because you're talking about them. And so I think that's really, really good. I really like that you mentioned several times help and services. It's clear and direct. And so I think that's a really great job. And I think that would go a long way for getting a family or even a worker, to pay attention to you. I also like at the end, you said, please let us know if you have a special request so we can communicate them to the right agency so you can get help. Sometimes, when we're out recruiting, maybe we go to a new area we've never been to before, or maybe you go to a place that you might not know as well. We might not know the needs of that area. And so we should never be afraid just to ask what somebody's needs are. This is especially true, for audiences that we're not as familiar with. So whether it be farmers, farm workers, or families, it's okay to ask them directly what their needs are. So I really like how Gloria closed her pitch there by saying, please let us know if you have a special request, because that lets them know that it's okay for them to share their need with you so that you can work with them to make sure that need gets met. Oops. So moving on to elevator pitches for schools or community partners. A lot of times we can't assume that even in schools that our audience is going to be familiar with the migrant education program. So we have to be prepared to explain the migrant education program as being a part of Title I Part C and to provide a brief history of the program as well. We want to always point out when we're out in our community talking to community partners how the program works in conjunction with the local school districts to supplement the educational opportunities of students. Oh, we have another one in chat. Jacob said, hi, my name is Jacob. I work with the local school or school district and offer services to families who work in agriculture like you. Our services can include interpretation, transportation, private tutoring, free school lunch and supplies. That's a really great one that I hadn't seen anybody else mention before. The school supplies and the school lunch, which is universal across states. Anybody that is eligible for the migrant education program is eligible for free lunch. Healthcare and more. Would you be interested in these services? And so I like how, again, you close it by asking, would you be interested in those services? So it continues that conversation. You're asking them a clear question so they know where to take the conversation next. That's really good. Remember that teachers and community partners might not have access to information on the type of work that families are engaged in or in previous work history. When talking about who is potentially eligible for MEP to schools, community partners, always kind of emphasize that you're looking for students that have recently arrived or new to the area, because those are much more easily identifiable for those that are unfamiliar with MEP guidelines. Also, always emphasize the desire to build strong relationships and ongoing partnerships. Make sure to clarify that the relationship should be beneficial to both parties. Include in your elevator pitch that your migrant education program looks to help their school organization as much as possible. Another key point that I would add here as well that you can include in your elevator pitch, especially to schools or partners, is if you have any concrete data about how successful the migrant education program has been before with students, be sure to include it here. Let them know. If you have success stories, positive success stories, share it with them. As well, I've seen recruiters before even include pictures in their elevator pitch to show off, from summer camps, or maybe, you had other kind of events, even PAC meetings, to show off you can show success stories about the program. And so we want to make sure that we're talking to our schools, our community partners, that we're emphasizing the beneficial nature of the relationship to both sides. Gloria said we have former students that are now doctors, teachers, and are even back in our community. So I think that's great right there. So you have a really great building point. So you can go to a community partner. Maybe there's another organization that might be working with similar populations to your area and say, hi, my name is Gloria. I work for the migrant education program. We work, with families in the area. We work with the local schools to help families in the area that have moved, recently arrived. In the past, we've had students come through the program that have gone on to be doctors and teachers in our own community. We want to partner with you to see how we can continue providing, services to our families or something like that. And so again, you're highlighting those success stories and how impactful the program has been in the past to kind of get them thinking, how good it would be to partner up. One of the other things I want to mention, I think a lot of us are educators that might work directly in with the schools. If you don't work directly in with the schools, but you're looking to get a start in the schools, always go first to the Title I director. They're going to oversee Title I programs in the school district, including the migrant education program, as well as, try to go straight to the superintendent. We know superintendents care a lot about the school districts that they work for. So introduce yourselves to them, because if you start by introducing yourselves, creating that elevator pitch to go straight to the top of, the school district and building that strong relationship with them, everything else will be able to follow. And so be able to work with them, to plan, be able to attend events, to be able to meet families within the schools, to work more closely with the schools. And so, try, to craft an elevator pitch that could go to one of them, the superintendent, Title I director, somebody high up there in the school district. And so now, just like we've done before with farmers, farm workers, and families, we're going to take a moment and think about what the needs might be of, the needs might be of the schools or community partners in your area. So go ahead, take a moment or two, think about maybe what those needs the schools or other organizations in your area might have, and how the migrant education program can meet those needs. And go ahead and share it in chat when you're ready. So if we're talking about, community partners, what kind of needs might they have? What kind of organizations? So, maybe Head Start could be a potential community partner. Maybe Head Start needs help recruiting students as well. And so, that could be a need. Think about what organizations might exist or do exist in your area, and maybe how you all can mutually help each other out. Lori mentioned that the schools and community partner needs volunteers. I think, that's really good. Schools may need additional resources or partners to refer migrant families to. I think that's a good one as well. Schools or teachers might know of, needs families have, but not know how to address those needs. We can coordinate with local agencies for food distribution, vaccine clinics, etc. Really, really good. Advertising their program and their services. I think that's also great. I think that's a really great idea. I always encourage, when you're out meeting community partners, always ask if they have flyers that you can hand out, or if they have business cards that you can hand out and give as well. If they see that you're wanting to advertise and help out, I think that can be really helpful. Yolanda says for communities may need interpreters to connect with non-English speaking families to connect with. That can be for schools, maybe schools need help interpreting, during parent-teacher conferences. I've seen that before, where the migrant education program has stepped in, to help interpret for parent-teacher conferences. Maybe other organizations might also need translating. Maybe they work with similar populations, but don't have people that speak the language. And so the migrant education program can step in and help them with that. Jacob said, we understand that there are families where you want to offer additional help, but your hands might be tied. We have many resources to help families who need that comprehensive help and can point families in the right direction of any need that they may have. Ooh, I think that's really good. I like, it's very, very professional and great for the audience, especially if we're talking about schools and community partners. Great way to think about the language that you're using, being very professional there. But I also, really like that you're talking about being able to help get them any needs and being able to work for any needs that they may have. And I think you're right. A lot of times schools are very limited in what they can offer. And so being able to offer, helping with those additional needs can be a big, big selling point. All right, anybody have any other thoughts about what needs community partners or schools might have? Awesome. So I think, we have a great idea. I think Jacob had an excellent, introduction that you could use as your elevator pitch there. We're kind of getting short on time, so we're going to go on. And I want to talk about, the last couple of points. To begin with, when we're talking about our elevator pitch, it's something that you're going to be using regularly. And so we want it to be something, that you feel comfortable with, that you enjoy doing, and that you, memorize it, be able to put out, your language, being able to practice your body language as well. So I encourage everybody, to practice giving their elevator pitch. You can practice in front of a mirror, so you can actually watch yourself. And so you stand in front of a mirror, think about the audience as you're going to be giving your elevator pitch to, and then practice giving it, something short, quick, 15 seconds. If at first you struggle to memorize it, it's okay to be reading it off a piece of paper and just practice. Again, practice going back, practice reading through, and then get to the point where you feel comfortable doing it without the paper. Pay attention to your hands, see what you're doing. Another option as well is to record yourself giving your elevator pitch. That'll help give you good perspective, of how you're doing. And so record yourself in order to see firsthand what it looks like. You can also continue practicing your elevator pitches with other recruiters so you can get feedback and so you can see how other recruiters introduce themselves as well. So maybe choose a partner in your area, or choose another recruiter in your state. If you don't work close together, maybe you could do it over the phone or via video, over FaceTime or even Zoom, and practice going back and forth, giving your elevator pitches so you can watch, take note of what you like, take note of anything that they might need to improve on, and provide that feedback to see how other recruiters are introducing themselves. You can learn the most from watching how others approach recruiting, take notes on what they do differently and what works well and what doesn't work well. You might also find phrases and details that work for them that you hadn't thought about before that you can adopt and adapt for yourself. And so hearing how somebody else does it can really change and make a world of difference and teach you a lot about how you can do things too. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everybody taking the time this morning. It's been great hearing the information, the feedback from you all. I'm seeing you all craft your elevator pitches in chat, talking about the needs of your communities. It's been really great to learn a little bit more, even just from that, about the places that you all work. If you all wouldn't mind taking a quick moment to fill out our training survey review form. We, as a requirement, being part of the federal consortium grant, we ask that everybody always fills out a training review form for any training that we provide. I shared the link to the Survey Monkey for the training review form in the chat, or you can scan the QR code on your screen using your phone. Just open up the camera on your phone, scan the QR code, and it'll open a link straight to your phone to the web browser so you can fill out the survey review form. Let us know how we're doing. We always want to provide the best quality training, as well as there's an opportunity there to let us know what you want to learn. And so, especially as new recruiters, let us know the training topics you would like to see so that we can be able to provide them in the future. But we really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today on the first day of the New Recruiter Bootcamp. We really appreciate that you all taking this afternoon. We hope you all can make it tomorrow for an exciting second day as well. We're going to have 3 new sessions for everybody to continue to learn, to meet more new recruiters as well, and so that we can all get better to find more students that are eligible for the migrant education program. Again, my name is Justin Settles. If you all have any other questions related to an elevator pitch or any other questions related to identification and recruitment, feel free to send me an email. The title of this presentation is Every Second Counts. And so when you're filling out the survey review form, it'll ask for the title Every Second Counts. Yeah, but again, thank you all so much for being here today. If you do have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll gladly get back to you. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.